everybody, it's Romania Black, and yes, we are starting a brand new show today. I hope I'm saying this right. Frieren, Beyond Journey's End. I think it's Frieren, which is German for freeze, so we're going to assume that Frieren is it. First and foremost, before we start anything else, know that Romania Black is one of the worst people at pronouncing things, certifiable. So Frieren is not the right way to say it. I'm sure the show will tell us, and then we'll see what happens. But I'm really excited. I had wanted to watch one of the new shows that was coming out or had been out the last couple of weeks, and I have been requested this show nonstop for the last month and a half. There have been so many requests for Frieren that it's become like, okay, fine, I'll put it on a poll. And then I realized that I had the opportunity for this slot coming up, and I was like, well, I could wait on that poll, or I could just go ahead and see if it wins the poll now. And it won by like a landslide. Like just no question whether to watch it or not. Everybody was like, just get it over with. And I was like, okay, cool. But I've heard that it's good. That's what I've been hearing. I know nothing about this show. First and foremost, what you should know about Romania Black's channel, if you're new to the channel, is that I don't know anything about the shows I'm watching. I am an English teacher, I'm a speech coach, and I'm a nerd who loves anime and manga in their 30s and am proud of it. And I know nothing about this show. That's pretty much it. There's a character that has elven ears. That's all I know. So I'm really excited because I've been avoiding spoilers. I've not really paid much attention online about this show because I figured at some point I might react to it. And so today's the day. So I do want to say a couple things first and foremost before we do. I have housekeeping. Floor is the moderator of my Discord, and they're going to be the moderator going through the comments. Please no manga spoilers. I think this is based on a manga. Please no manga spoilers, and please no spoilers for the plot, for the characters, no hints or clues of things to come. I like being surprised. If I say something in the discussions that is wrong, don't worry, I'll probably be proven wrong later by the show. And when that happens, I'd like to be surprised. So I will have a moderator going through checking comments. Also, I have been told that there may be a chance that people recommend that I watch certain episodes together. Please save your wrists. Don't get carpal tunnel. Spare your breaths. I'm going to watch episode to episode, and I'm sorry if that does not appeal to some people, but that's the way it's going to be. So please don't beg me to watch certain episodes together. That kind of gives a spoiler that something's going to happen or there's a cliffhanger. I would like to find that out on my own, and then you all can revel in my despair. So that's basically it. So I'm going to be watching one episode at a time, no exceptions. And the only other thing is I was told, because I was a little curious about the OP, I didn't know if the OP would be spoilery or if it would be one of those kind of OPs where they just show you characters and maybe you'll know who they are later on. The one thing I was told is that there are some streaming services that show the lyrics to the OP, and they were like, you might not want to pay attention to those because they could be spoilery. And I was like, that's fair enough. So if I look at the OP, I am telling myself, and I'm a very controlled, patient person, so I've told myself I will just look at the imagery, and that is it. So there we go. One other thing, I'm trying something new format-wise, is that those of you watching on YouTube, you will see the reaction in the link down below. It will be kind of chopped up like I've done my banana fish reactions, so thus and so forth. Going to be doing that. And then as far as the actual full reaction itself, it'll be down in the link below if you're on Patreon. So hopefully that works. I explained it in my New Year's video, but it's a new format that I'm trying. We'll see how it goes. So we'll see how it goes, right? I'm very curious to see what ends up happening, but we'll just have to see, all right? So in any case, I'm excited. I hope you all are too, but we're not going to waste any more time. I'm super excited to see what's going to happen in this series. And so I'm going to watch the OP, but I'm going to not, if there are lyrics on the screen, I'm not going to pay attention to them. I'm just going to look at the imagery, which honestly, I feel like I'm going to be looking at the imagery anyway, because that's just kind of the person I am. The lyrics will come later. I am going to plan to look at the lyrics if there are 2 cores to this series. Whenever the first core is over, I will look at the lyrics for those. And then if it's an OP that lasts the entire season, then at the end of the OP season, I'll look at it as well. But let's not waste any more time. Let's dive in, shall we? We are going to start Frieren, Beyond Journey's End, and we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's do this, y'all. Oh, Where souls rest. We're gonna go back to this. Mages, we're gonna go back to this. I'll talk about it. I realized why there weren't lyrics to the OP, but we'll go back to it in the discussion. Frieren. There we go. Ooh, this character with the blue hair. And there's Gimli, and there's this green-haired guy that's like Midorma's cousin. Oh! We're starting at the end of the story. Interesting. Okay. Oh, are we gonna get like a Fruits Basket Kyo and Yuki dynamic with this girl? Are we gonna get one of those? I'm here for it if we are. So that's what Beyond Journey's End means. Okay, so we're at the end of the story. Wow. I was not prepared. There's like only 4 of them though. They all seem so kosher and casual, and yet secretly they've defeated a demon king, so you know that they're badass. So what? Eisen and Heiter. Oh, she's a mage. Okay. Thanks for defeating the demon king. Hope that wasn't hard. Oh, I love this. The angel. Chapter 6, the last battle. Statues of them. Oh my god. Yeah, they all seem so casual and easygoing, but they defeated a demon king, so we know that's not the case. This would normally be the part where the blue-haired guy would be 10 years! What? What? Really? Ah! I have a hard time believing that these 4 defeated a demon king, but I was exceptional. Well, a mere 10-year adventure. Yeah. That's a decade. Yeah, that's a long time. Oh. This feels so weird just starting at the end. Oh. Every 50 years. Wow. But that probably wouldn't happen, right? Because then we wouldn't have a story. I'm having a moment! Don't spoil the mood! Oh. Oh. I wonder if elves in this world age really slowly. Oh. Yeah. So she's just gonna leave them? For the next 100 years or so! Oh, no big deal! Yeah! How long has she been around? Yeah, that's a good question. Huh. Because she said she's gonna come back in 50 years and see them. Alright, is that the last we're gonna see of them? What? The rabbits. Aww. Still getting stuck in the boxes. Oh my god. I don't know! Oh my god. Oh my god, it's been 50 years? 50 years? Holy shit, she's... Wow, it's just been 50 years. Just like that. Forget the Fruits Basket ship! Ah! Oh. Oh, because it's been 50 years. Oh, and his eyes are the same. Oh. Oh. Oh, this is gonna be one of those shows. Oh my god. Sorry, I think.
適当に納屋にでも放り込んでおいてくれてよかった。
にとっては軽い気持ちで預けたものかもしれないけど、
But I had to keep
僕
it
にとっ
safe.
ては大切な仲間から預かった大事なものなんだ。いつか君にこうして返すべきものだったんだ。
Oh my gosh. Huh.
ハゲなんだからこだわったって意味ないよ。
Oh my goodness!
ハゲなりのこだわりがあるの。
Ah. So he's like, what, 70 or 80 now? Probably at least 80. Whoa! How's he not aged a bit? How's the priest not aged?
生徒の司教ですから。あなたは全然変わりませんね。
Man, he really hasn't aged hardly.
そうか。
Yeah! Yeah, he doesn't look any different.
で、よく見える場所ってど
Oh
こ？
my god, I'm amazed the priest hasn't aged that much, but Himmel has.
こんなに遠いのか。
Oh.
まったく。
And to her, it'd be like nothing. Be kinder to the elderly.
何もかもが新鮮で、きらめいて見える。
Oh, him talking like this is gonna make me sad. Oh my god, that dog is huge! Oh! Well, maybe I can see how they killed the Demon King now. Maybe I can see that.
そのおかげで、最後にとても楽しい冒険
Oh,
が
this
で
is
き
making me
た。
really sad. Oh! Show, why you make me cry the first episode? What the hell? Oh.
綺麗だ。
Oh! Gutted! 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 He's already dead and it's been one episode?
一つしないなんて白状だね。
Oh.
おやおや、私たちもしていませんよ。司教は真面目にやれ。この白状だ。
This is horribly sad.
だって私この人のことたった10年一緒に旅しただけだし、剣の寿命は短いって分かっていたのに、なんでもっとしようと思わなかったんだろう。
Oh my gosh.
二人とも顔をよく見せて。
Because it might be the last time he sees
これ
them.
で最後になるでしょうからね。
どこか悪いの？
長年の酒がたたりましてね。天罰だな。
Oh.
私たちは世界を救った勇者パーティーですよ。死後は天国で贅沢三昧に決まっています。
Oh my gosh.
そのために私はあなた方と共
What the hell, show? It'll be fun times, they said.
さて、私もそろそろ。
This will be a fun show.
魔法収集の旅か。
Yeah. What about Ison? What's he gonna do?
だけど、私魔法職だからさ、強力な前衛。
Are you going to come with me?
勘弁して。もう斧を触れるような年じゃないんだ。
Well, this did not go the way I thought it was gonna go in the first damn episode. Oh! You could show me somebody with their head lopped off, but you show me one old man and I'm done.
この森いつもいないな。どこだか。
You've been lost in them before? 20 years later? Oh my god, why are we skyrocketing through this?
人の家を探しているんだけど。では、お客様で
Oh, hater. I mean, it's been 20 years.
まだ生きてたんだ、生臭坊主。
What?
かっこよく死ぬのも難しいものですな。
no!
墓に備える酒買ってきちゃったけど、一杯やる？
He has to be 100 years old.
やめたんです。
あの子は
フェルンと言います。
Fern.
南側諸国の
Okay.
戦線孤児でした。
Alright.
では一つ頼み事を。
He's gonna want you to take the girl with
弟
him.
子を取りませんか？
Yeah, he wants you to take Fern.
フェルンには魔法使いとして
Oh,
の素質
wow.
があります。あなたの旅に連れて行ってくれませんか？
Oh.
ごめんハイター。それだけはできない。
Why not?
足手まとい。
ものです。この魔導書には今は失われた死者の蘇生や不死の魔法が記されているとされています。
そんな魔法が実在するとは思えない。
Yeah, without a big
それも
price.
含めて解読をお願いしたいのです。できますか？
絵を作
ですよ。
Well, that's stretching it. Yeah, yeah, it's stretching it a little bit.
それと解読の片手間で構わないので、フェルン
Oh.
に魔法を教えてあげてはくれませんか？私は僧侶なのでどうも勝手がわからない。
Then what were you doing on the trip?
まあその
Oh. With her little staff?
言った。探すのが大変だったよ。いつも森で修行しているの？
打ち抜けば一人前のありました。
へえ、ハイターも分かってんじゃん。あれはね。
Oh! Oh!
このように魔力が離散してしまい届かないのです。
なるほどね。
I see! I see!
でしょうか？
Huh.
ねえ、先に一つ聞いていい？魔法は好き？
ほどほどでございます。
Somewhat.
私と同じだ。
Ah. Oh my gosh! What have you all got me signed up for? Oh. Oh, y'all. You all did not warn me. And I didn't expect you to warn me, and I didn't want you to, but I was like, if you're new to this channel, let it be known, I don't think I've ever cried in the first episode of any show I've watched in 3 years on this channel. I don't think I've cried in the first episode of any show. I don't think it's happened. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I have. And I was doing fine. It came out of nowhere. I can watch the most gruesome, horrific deaths to characters that I've followed for seasons upon seasons, but you get me this little old man who grew up waiting for her to come back, and then she did to share her final moments with him, and that's all he wanted? Remember when I was like, oh, I think the blue-haired character and the red-haired character are going to be in a love triangle with the white-haired girl? No, that is not this story. That is not this story at all. So, you all are taking Romania's ships and sinking them before they can even leave the harbor. I also love shipping, and shipping's gonna be hard with this story. I have a feeling shipping's gonna be really hard because she's outliving everybody. It's like a reverse isekai. It's like the Benjamin Button of isekais. Okay, first and foremost, I've never watched an isekai before, so I don't know what those are. I just know people die a lot of times over and over again in them. I don't think that's this. I've got to catch a break. Oh my god. Second, I've watched a lot of fantasy, but they've not been like Dungeons and Dragons type fantasy. They've been like, you know, I've seen some medieval fantasy before. I've read Chaucer. I've read some other things like that before. I've read freaking Beowulf. I know of like Chinese fantasy, like Danmai and things like that. So I know a little bit about those and a little bit about like Japanese fantasy, but I'm not as versed. I just want to be transparent. I'm not as versed with the lore of like the Dungeons and Dragons, the mages versus the paladins versus this. My brother is all into that. He's, you know, we joked in Dragon Ball Z Abridged about you don't mess with the white mage, which is her, which is Frieren. She's the white mage. Don't ever F with the white mage, right? So that's her, but I don't know a whole lot about it, right? I'm not in Final Fantasy mode. I started Final Fantasy X. I started Final Fantasy X and went from there. So I will not be as privy to some of the dialogue that it's going to be new to me, right? It's going to be all new. Like they talked about mana. I know about mana. Out of mana, we're out of life, out of health. I'm used to that. But other than that, I am not privy to the lingo. So it's going to be hard, I know, because some of you are going to want to explain what things mean. And it's fine as long as it doesn't give away character or plot elements that I should know in the future, because I'd like to find those out on my own. If it's clarifying something that is said in the actual episode itself, that is fine. But if it's trying to give away stuff about a character that you already know about, then I'd rather figure that out on my own. But, okay, well, I figured out what the problem was. When I started out this episode, I was like, oh, there's no lyrics. We're smooth sailing from here. And the thing about it is that my episode was set for the English dub and English no subtitles, so that's why. So when I switched it back over to Japanese, it was like, okay, we're back. We're back to the subtitles and everything, which is fine. I'll just ignore them and just look at the imagery. Oh my god, I gotta catch myself after this episode. So this is Whiteboard Coon. If you did not know what Whiteboard Coon is, he is the explainer of all things. He assists me in helping to break down stuff. I didn't know if I should bring out Whiteboard Coon. I don't know how much I'm going to put on Whiteboard Coon, but he's here to help me kind of break down, because there is a little bit of lore, a little bit of things, and your homegirl is not good at math. She's an English teacher, so we need to break the numbers down, because I was like, what? Oh my god. So yeah, I mainly wanted Whiteboard Coon out to talk about this opening map that starts us out and basically talks about, we have lots of things. We have a nice little map. We have the southern lands. We have the middle sea. There's not a lot in the southern lands. Southern lands, pretty much nobody cares about what's on that part of the map. There's like a few little minor towns. They're not very important. It says at the northernmost end of the continent. That's what we care about. I arrived at the place that the people of this world call heaven, or Oriel, the land where souls rest. Okay, so our girl, she's at this place called Oriole, whatever, however we want to say it, the land of Solioles, and it is the place where souls rest, and it's called heaven. Now, you could take that literally and say, oh, it's literally heaven, or that it's a very peaceful kingdom and people go there like to retire, to rest their souls, right? And then she says from there, we get another little piece of text right up here. And it says, many souls gather there. I spoke with friends who once fought alongside me. Flam, the legendary mage. Okay, so this is someone else's text. This is not Frieren. This is Flam, which is flame. So interesting that we have freeze and we have flame. So I spoke with the friends who once fought alongside me. So basically it's just the idea in the northern lands that it's basically this peaceful area. Okay. And Flam is the legendary mage. Interesting. So I'm like, I wonder if Flam is a elf as well. I don't know. We shall see, right? Interesting. And then, yeah, in the northernmost kingdom, it says the Indy there. It's like Oriel, it's the end, right? It's like the final destination, huh? Interesting. Now we have all these little towns and stuff that are set along the way, like Cool and Auburst and Offen and Note and Vorg and Rat and Ale and Alt and Bland. I'm curious where our story is taking place at. We have Strahl, and curious, I'm wondering where it goes to. So I'm curious if Frieren is gathering up all these spells and summons to eventually go up to the top of that mountain. I don't know. We don't know yet. But what a curious concept. The idea that this story starts at the end of another story, right? Automatically it's kind of fresh in that you have this entire story's already taken place and this is the end of it. It feels so weird though, because they talked about being on this journey for 10 years and their characters are like, oh, it's fine. We just killed a demon king. That's all. I'm so curious about that because where it starts, I mean, not that it matters. This is the start of the story anyway, but we have this idea that there were 10 years spent on a quest to kill a demon king. Despite it taking 10 years, it must not have taken too much of a toll on them because they all seem non-traumatized. They all seem like it went well. Everything went accordingly. Although, if you have this power to shoot magic like Frieren does, then I would assume you'd be fine. So, I guess so. But she kind of is just sitting there reading her little spell books, and they talk to her, and then we have Himmel up there who has his sword and everything, and they're like, we're back at the kingdom after being gone for 10 years. And, the adventurers are making their triumphant return. So, I mean, Himmel, by the time he died, if we look at it this way, that was 10 years, and let's say Himmel and Hater, or Heater, let's say they were like, I don't know, like 20 and 25 at the time. So then around the time they got back, they were 30 and 35, let's say. Or we could even say that, you know, Himmel was probably 15, maybe 15 or 20, so he was probably 25 or 30, maybe. We'll say that. So the time that she came back after 50 years for the festival, then he would have been, you know, 75 or 80, and then he was like 85 at the time. And then 20 years more have passed to the present time, and in that time, Hater would have to be like around 100 plus years old at this point. So he's aged considerably. So I guess for the most part, how he's kept alive all this time, like unless he's been doing some magic on the side, trying to like decipher the immortality spells to make himself live longer and longer, that's rather interesting. I don't know. And then you have Ison, who is a dwarf, so we don't know exactly how long dwarves live. We don't know how long elves live in this world, although if it's like Lord of the Rings elves, they can live for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, right? But we have the kingdom, and so they're like, we defeated the Demon King, but it's not over. We're back. We have the whole rest of our lives ahead of us, which goes by for Himmel like in the blink of an eye. Like it's done. Like it's just over. He's like, the life ahead of you will surely be much longer than we can imagine. So yeah, she's just this ancient elf who keeps on living. And she says, perhaps. I'm like, why is she gathering up spells and summons? What's the point of that? Okay. I was wanting to know exactly which city it was to kind of get an idea of where we were in all of this. To know where exactly we're. Himmel the hero, Ison the warrior, Hater the priest. I'm like, what did he do on the trip? Was he like the minstrels in Monty Python? He was like Brave Sir Knight, Brave Sir Galahad, and Frieren the mage. I mean, she probably put in some heavy lifting alongside Himmel and Ison, but what the hell did Hater do? And now our world will enter an age of peace. Thanks to destroying the Demon King. I like the angel with that. So then, yeah, what's so frustrating watching is that you see, when I saw the fireworks show that said Chapter 6, the last battle, and you see the fireworks go up, I was like, wait, no, tell me the final battle. How did they defeat the Demon King? I want to see all of this. And you don't get to find out because that's not the story. The story is not about that. But I'm like, I wanted to see how they defeated him. Come on now. But that's not it. I do love how we see the dancing and everything, like the dancing in the square. There's some guy with the fringe. We see this person like playing on the, they're playing the, it's not like the ukulele, but it's similar. And then the kid has like the candy apple. Like this world feels very lived in. It feels very rich already. And then Frieren is just like trying to like go around, and she seems very unamused by the humans. And he's like, oh, they're going to put statues of us in the plaza. And she's like, okay, whatever. She's giving me a lot of, this is what's interesting. Frieren, she doesn't seem to understand the fleetingness of life. She takes it for granted. She takes for granted humanity. And how short it is, right? She reminds me a little bit of Shilian, who is the main character in Heaven Official's Blessing, only in that Shilian is a very old character that's been wandering around for a very long time in that series, and she kind of has a similar aspect like him to that. But But yeah, he's like, I'm sure I'm not sure how faithfully they'll recreate my handsome looks though. And she's like, oh yeah. She's like, yeah, how self-serving of him. He only gave us 10 copper coins when we left for our adventure, and we had to work from there. Like, she's got sass to her. She's got a lot of sass and spunk to her, but she seems very kind of, like, not cynical, but just sort of apathetic about everything. She's got her agenda, and that's all she really cares about. And the trip and everything, just to her, 10 years doesn't seem like a long time, but to them, it's been a journey. It's the end of their adventure. And it's been 10 years. And I like that we have at the beginning, the priest and her were sparing Ison and Himmel from getting killed by him. I'm like, I wanted to see that. Like, they talk about all their journeys together and them going on, and like him being hungover, which reminded me of a character in Vinland Saga. And then her with her staff and everything. And them just like going on a quest, her getting like that mimic tried to eat her, like the monster that's a mimic that's mimicking the treasure chest. I do kind of know that. I played a little bit of Legend of Zelda, so a little bit of that there. And then he's like, we have nothing but terrible memories. But yet they kind of look fondly at one another. He's like, but I had fun. And I'm glad I got to adventure with you all. Like, he makes it, like, such a big thing, because to him, it's 10 years. It's a decade. That's so long. And the priest and Ison, the dwarf, they kind of are like, yeah, same. But Frieren, in that moment, she's like, it was a mere 10-year adventure. And he's like, a mere 10-year adventure? That's like, an eighth of his life. Oh. It breaks my soul. And he's like, look at Hader, he turned into an old man, which is hilarious considering, like, how old he is, like, later on in the series, right? But it's so heartbreaking that she just doesn't seem to understand, like, how short that time is. And she wishes they could go see the meteor shower. And she's like, oh, well, I'll come back in 50 years and we'll go see it. And he's like, okay, like, you don't know how long that is. And the thing about it is, it doesn't seem like he had a family or anything like that. Like, he was just waiting for her. Oh. And it's like, just tear your heart out. It makes me think of Aragorn and oh my gosh, the Even Star. It makes me think of that. Not Aurelorial, because that's Aragorn and her daughter's name in Lord of the Rings. But it's like Aragorn and oh my gosh, I can't think of her name now. Liv Tyler's character, the elf. But it's like Aragorn and her. Like, it just seems like their story was she's like, her father's like, he's going to die and you're going to keep living on. And then we see that embodied here. And it's like, wow. And this is in episode 1. How? She's like, I'll take you to a place to see them more clearly. And he knew that she'd come back. He's like, yeah, let's go see them together. And so then, yeah, she's like, well, I'm going to go keep collecting spells. That's just what I'm going to do. She's like, I'm going to travel the Central Lands for the next 100 years or so. Just for the next 100 years, no big deal. I'm just gonna go do that. Go around the Central Lands here. Okay, so she's like, I'll stop by once in a while. So they are pretty much in the Central Lands. Like, they're not up north yet, right? He's like, I can't understand what being an elf must be like. How long has she been around? To her, 50 or 100 years is a trifling thing. So, what's interesting is that if they're in the southern lands, are we going to be like building our way up north to where Flom is? Is that what we're building towards? Is Flom the little impish looking one in the castle? Doesn't seem like it. Flom seems like a much more noble character, but seems more noble and more dignified than the little imp that's in the castle. I don't know. Here's my thing. I like shipping, but I don't think I can ship anybody with Frieren, because she's just kind of like this immortal creature that doesn't age, and everybody around her ends up aging and dying. So how can I ship her with somebody when she's like, we've already demonstrated in episode 1, they're going to keep growing older and die, and she's going to live. Do I ship her with the little imp in the castle? Is that who I'm going to end up shipping her with the bad guy? I don't know. Is this going to be one of those series that I can't really ship in? Maybe I'll just have to end up shipping between the people, and Frieren is just not going to get in on any of the action. But I want her to. I want her to get some action in this series. So maybe she has to teach the heartless imp in the shadows of the OP the meaning of friendship and the meaning of life and humanity and mortality. Maybe that's her mission. We'll see. And her observing these humans throughout the series will give her the base knowledge she needs to do that, right? I will say, we're going to talk about the priest here by the end of this, but him being kind of obsessed with how she's not aged or anything, it's going to come back when he tells her to do the whole look for the immortality things. So yeah, she just goes around, she's looking for this shadow dragon's horn that she needs for some kind of summon. I love the continuity of she goes to visit the one man's shop and he's, you know, a certain age and she's like bartering with him and looking for this certain thing, and then she like travels along, has her little cloak, she's like in the sunlight, levitating, makes stuff grow, doing all these things, traveling along her little merry way, doing her little thing. You would think this wouldn't take her 100 years to do so, or 50 years, but sure. And then yeah, she's just hanging out, doing all sorts of things. She goes back to the shop, and we see the same man there, and he's aged to show the passage of time. But she stays the same, which is interesting, right? And she goes back to the same old man. He's like, we don't have any of those. And she's like, well, I need them for my summoning. And she's like, maybe Himmel still has one, right? And then she goes back to find him. And she notes how the city has changed, but the statues of them are still there. And then he's aged so much, but his eyes are still the same. And I don't know, there's something about his voice. His old man voice just made me cry. Like, it just like was so tender and like so touching. And I was like, ugh. And he thought he'd never see her again. And then she shows up, and then they end up going to see the meteor showers. And it's so pretty. He gives her the damn horn. And then they all meet up to go. And I like that the priest gives her like a little head pat. And she's like, no head pats. She's kind of like a mix of Shelian and Kuroko from Kuroko's basketball. She's like, no head pats. But she's like, don't do that. She's like, I'm older than you are. What was interesting is that Ison doesn't look that much older. Like, his beard stays the same color. But then when he lifts his hands out to stroke his beard, you can see like how his arm has aged. And he's like, I can't wield an axe anymore. And even then, to her, that shows that, oh, I really am the only one that's not aging. Even the dwarves around me are aging. So, that's something, right? But, oh my God. And then she's like, oh yeah, the meteor showers, it's just a week's walk. And they're like, well, to you, that is nothing, but okay. And so they just take off with her to go, and then he recounts all of these things and all their times together, and it's the sweetest thing. This demon dog is huge, like what the fudge, and she just blasts through it, this Cerebrus. Like, that's interesting. I'm like, Ison says he can't do anything, but then he also did, like, I don't know, he did jump on its head, right? Even though he didn't slam it with his axe. And yeah, she just blasted away. And he said, you were always there in those beautiful memories. And she just, you know, she thinks that they're going to be there, and he thanks her and everything. And it's the sweetest thing. Oh, my heart. And then, yeah, he ends up passing away. Oh. And they have like the service and everything. And everybody comments how she's not sad at all and how she must be heartless. And that got me, because I was like, oh no. She doesn't, like, she, you know, didn't think that he would probably just die like that. Because she hasn't been around humans long enough to forge those relationships. And then to see them pass, and it's like, oh. Like, it just made me emotional now. Oh my gosh. Show, how dare. And then I like that the priest and Ison try to they try to diverge the attention away, being like, well, we're not crying either, ha ha ha. And everybody ends up throwing stuff at the priest. But of course, she's like, I didn't really know him. Like, we were just on a mission together, and I didn't really know him. And then we see all the times that they spent together, like him slaying the snake monster with his sword. And then I like that we get the image of him like grabbing her, running away from like this fire dragon. And the priest has Ison. And she's like, we were just on a mission together. And then like them busting through the table. And that's when she realizes, she starts crying. She's like, we only traveled together. It's so sad. Like, it gets me so hard. And then she's like, I knew humans' lives were short, but... And it's so sad. She's like, why didn't I try to get to know him better? Oh. And it's so freaking sad. Like, it makes me cry right now. And then they both put their hands on her head and stuff. Oh my gosh. It's the sweetest thing. So, she's realized how short humanity is. And she wants to try to know people better. She wants to try to know humanity. She's been wandering around gathering spells. It's been kind of boring. We need to get to know people because their lives are gone too short. And so then she gets, like, the ring. I'm assuming the ring is Himmel's. And he's like, well, I'm going back to the holy city. And he's like, let me get a good look at you because it's the last time I'll probably see you. And at that point, I'm like, she's going to try to find him again before he dies. But she asks if he's scared of dying. And I think that he's like, well, we're a party of adventurers that saved the world. We'll be surely living the good life in heaven after death. But that didn't answer the question, right? And then we find out later that he is scared of dying. He doesn't want to die. And I feel like he's kind of envious of her for everything that she has. And then she's like, you corrupt priest. Which I feel like is telling us all along that he's corrupt. But it's like it's been right in front of us from the start. We'll see. And then, yeah, you can kind of see Ison. He does look a little bit old there with the lines under his eyes. And she asks him to come with her. And he says, no, even I'm too old to do that. And I feel like at that point, she doesn't want anybody by her side unless there is the opportunity that they will be strong enough to stand alongside her. She seems pretty freaking strong, right? Again, reminds me of Shelian from Heaven Official's Blessing. She seems really strong. So chances are that she'll be just fine. But she's afraid of putting someone else in danger that is not up to snuff with her. So, 20 years pass, right? She says 20 years after the death of Himmel the hero on the outskirts of the holy city of Strahl in the Central Lands. Okay, so I'm at like 19 minutes here. I'm going to go back to that map at the beginning and see where the heck Strahl is. Oh, hell! We're definitely in the Central Lands. We ain't even near the Northern Lands. I'm sure that's where we're going to in the story. We're just barely at the Middle Sea. We're not good up there. Okay, so we're probably going to be heading up north this entire series. I'm going to be guessing. Because all the cities are up north, and we're just at Strahl. Okay, and we haven't even made it. Like, end is, I'm assuming, where the end of the story is. Okay. Fair enough. So then she meets Fern, who I like Fern a lot. Fern's this little girl who the priest seems to think has the aptitude to be a mage. And he's still living, but he's quit drinking. And she's like, well, I brought some liquor to pour in your grave. You want to drink it? He's like, no, I gave up drinking, which is hilarious. So she's got to save it. And then I love that she's like, the goddess probably isn't going to forgive you even if you clean up your act now. And he's like, ha, 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 ominous laughing. I don't know. He's taken in this girl who is an orphan from the war in the South, which 20 years has passed. So even though they destroyed the Demon King that was plaguing whatever city they were in at the time, it's very possible that in those 20 years, or 70 years, if you count the 50 years after they defeated the Demon King, then there's a chance that something else had broke out between now and then. But he took in Fern and thinks she has the aptitude to be a mage. And at first what it sounds like, and I like that Frieren says it's not like you to volunteer to help people, so what's in it for you? Well, I think what's in it for him is that she can protect him because she's, a mage in training, and maybe he wanted her to be able to read the book that could give him immortality and she couldn't do it, so that's why he asks Frieren. But what it sounded like to me at first was he wanted her to take Fern because he didn't think he was going to live very long. And he's like, well, here, you take her and cultivate her to be a mage like you, since I'm not going to live long enough to take care of her. Right? And the way she says you're not Himmel, that part there was very interesting because it shows, one, that after 70 years, she still remembered little things about Himmel even after all this time, and the priest kind of has a reaction to that. And I don't know what the priest's reaction to that is, if he's jealous of Himmel and her relationship or what it is. I'm not exactly sure. That's interesting to me, though, that he kind of like twitches there. And he's like, why did you come to visit me? And she's like, well, I was in the holy city picking up some things. So I was trying to get to know the people I meet on my travels as much as possible. And I owe you a lot, so I came to repay my debts before you died. Which is interesting because earlier she said she came to bring liquor to pour in his grave. So it's like, which is it, right? Are you paying debts or what? And he's like, okay, well then will you take on Fern? And she's like, no. She's like, she'd get in my way and she's not strong enough. She's like, young mages die in battle. I'm not doing it. And he's like, fine, well if you won't do that and you won't take her on as an apprentice, then I have something else that I want you to look at. So he says that there is this unearthed from the tomb of Ewig the Sage, which sounds like twig, right? We have Flom, we have Ewig, and we have Frieren. So it's like all about the elements. So Ewig the Sage, not mage though, so it's a little bit different. All right, a little bit different than a mage. Sage, mage, they are different, I know. A grimoire, now we're getting a case study of Vanitas, that contains lost spells of resurrection and immortality. Now, I don't know. Every story that I've dealt with that has stuff that involves immortality and resurrection as a spell or, formula usually doesn't end well or has a very dire cost you have to pay to have it enacted. So I'm not getting good vibes. No. And she just kind of looks at it and she's like, okay. And she's like, I find it hard to believe that such magic really exists. Right? And he's like, well, that's why I want you to decipher it. And she's like, she's like, it's written in code using pictures. And she's like, people of this era really liked this kind of thing. She's like, if I had 5 or 6 years, maybe I could do it. Which to her is no time at all. But to him, if he's dying, could seem like a pretty, substantial amount. And he's like, oh, okay, well. She's like, why do you want it deciphered? And she's like, I thought you weren't afraid of dying. And he's like, well, I have 2 reasons. The first is that when I said that, I was just putting on a brave face for you. He's like, the second is now that I'm afraid of dying more than I was before. So he's like, first, I was lying. I am afraid of dying. And second, I'm more afraid of dying now than I was then. So even if I can't become immortal, I would like to find a way to extend and have more time on this earth. But what is the price of that going to be? I don't know. And she just kind of looks at it like, whatever. And he's like, well, the holy text tells us to live healthy lives, so this is just doing that to the fullest, right? And she's like, well, that's a bit corrupt. So that's kind of a white lie. I don't know. I would like to think that Hader is a good person. I would like to think he's not the stereotypical anime character with glasses that we shouldn't trust. I would like to think that, but there's a part of me that doesn't get good vibes from this, and I hope I'm wrong. I hope it turns out to not be something sinister, but I just feel something weird about him giving her this text to decipher immortality. Like, he takes in this girl with the aptitude to become a mage, and was he wanting her to decipher the text? I don't know. I just get bad juju vibes from it somehow. I don't know. And he's like, well, in your spare time, while you're deciphering it, can you teach her some magic? And she's like, sure, I could do that. And so I guess he's trying to keep her around for 5 or 6 years so that she can decipher that book. So just keeping her around rather than studying. He's like, if you're going to repay your debt, then spend the next 5 or 6 years here figuring out this book and how to decipher it. And meanwhile, while you're doing that, train Fern to use magic since you're not going on quests and she won't be in danger. Maybe. So I'm wondering if Fern is older in the OP, if we're going to stick around the next couple episodes until Fern is older, and that'll be 5 or 6 years. And then Frieren will be like, I'm on my way. And Fern's like, I'm coming with you. Like, maybe the priest will die. Maybe he'll become the villain of the series. I don't know. But I do like her giant staff and showing that she can, in fact, use magic. She's just not as good as Frieren yet. And she's like, I can barely detect her energy, her mana. How much has she studied already? She studied quite a bit. And Friren's like, oh, I like that Frieren doesn't really have an emotional reaction to anything other than crying over Himmel, which, valid. Other than that, she doesn't really have a reaction to anything. She's just like, what are you doing? Like, you know, how's it going? And then she's like, what do I need to do to train? And that's when she asks, what do you think of magic? Do you like it? And she's like, somewhat. And that's when Friren's like, that's how I feel as well. We both have the same view of it. Nice. So yeah. Oh, this episode. My dogs are starting to bark, and I am floored by this episode already. I need to gather myself. I'm very intrigued. I'm very excited by this series. I'm very curious moving forward. I'm not going to read too much into the ED and OP yet because we have to get further in. I think as we go, I'll analyze it more. But I'm super excited to see. I think next episode I'll give the OP and ED more of a look. But I'm curious to see what's going to happen with this priest. I'm curious to see what is going to happen with Frieren. I like Frieren so far. I like the fact that she isn't going to be cold and quote-unquote heartless this entire time, because she's an elf. She's lived so long, she's seen people come and go. To her, she's like, you know, you kind of have to have a hard heart if you're going to live that long, because otherwise you'd be miserable the entire time, because all the people you care about would be dying around you. But with Himmel, it finally hits her, someone that cared about her, that she didn't get to know as well as she probably should have, and could have built a relationship with. So it's going to be interesting seeing her try to develop that with others and see how that goes. See if her and Fern stick together, or if they leave, or what's the deal with Hater. How this ends up going, I don't know. But I'm curious to find out. So I'm excited to hear your comments down below. Please, no spoilers, no information from the manga. I'm excited to hear your comments about the series. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yes, I will dry my eyes, gather my courage, and be back for episode 2 of Frieren Beyond Journey's End.